My daughter-in-law stood there crying in the middle of my living room, clutching her suitcase like a lifeline. Her tears seemed so genuine, so desperate. But then I saw it, a notification lighting up my son's phone on the kitchen counter, mill move-in plan phase 3. Complete. My blood ran cold. If I hadn't glimpsed that hidden voice recording in his voice memos folder later that evening, I might have welcomed them with open arms. But their scheme had been meticulously documented, scheduled down to the minute, waiting to unfold. My name is Eleanor Brooks, and at 62, I thought I'd learned to read people pretty well. 3 years widowed, living alone in my 2-bedroom condo at Maple Crest in Cedar Ridge, Colorado. I'd built a quiet routine that suited me. Early retirement from 30 years as an administrative secretary had given me time to breathe, to grieve properly, to find myself again. But that Thursday afternoon in late October changed everything. I thought I knew about boundaries and family. I was hauling grocery bags from the elevator when I heard crying from inside my unit. Not soft weeping, full, body-shaking sobs that made my keys fumble in the lock. When I pushed open the door, there was Tessa, my daughter-in-law, collapsed on my cream sofa with 2 massive suitcases flanking her like sentinels. The afternoon sun, streaming through my west-facing windows, cast long shadows across her tear-streaked face. "Mom!" She practically lunged at me, and I had to drop my Whole Foods bags to catch her. "Thank God you're home. I didn't know where else to go." The smell of her expensive perfume, something floral and overwhelming, filled my nostrils as she pressed against me. Over her shoulder, I saw Michael emerge from my kitchen, holding one of my good coffee mugs like he'd been living here for weeks. "Hey, Mum." His voice carried that particular exhaustion I recognized from his teenage years, when he'd done something wrong but didn't want to admit it. "We've had a situation." I gently extracted myself from Tessa's grip, noting how quickly her sobs quieted once I'd stepped back. "What kind of situation requires suitcases?" "The contractor started demolishing our kitchen today," Michael said, setting down the mug on my glass coffee table without a coaster. I watched the condensation ring form immediately. The dust. "Mom, it's everywhere. Tessa's allergies are going crazy. The noise starts at 7 in the morning and doesn't stop until 6 at night." Tessa nodded vigorously, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue that materialized from nowhere. "I can't work like this. You know I need quiet for my marketing calls. And the bathroom, they've got plastic sheeting everywhere. It's like living in a construction zone." "Because it is a construction zone," I said slowly, bending to pick up my groceries. The frozen items were already starting to sweat through the bag. "That's what renovation means." Michael moved to help me, but I waved him off. Something about the choreography of this scene felt rehearsed. Tessa's position on the sofa, Michael's casual emergence from my kitchen, even the placement of those suitcases. "It'll just be 5 to 7 days, Tessa said, her voice small and pleading. "Maybe less if they work weekends. We wouldn't ask if we had any other option." I carried my groceries to the kitchen, noting the dishes in my sink that hadn't been there this morning. A laptop was plugged into my kitchen outlet, a scheduling calendar pulled up on the screen. Post-it notes in Tessa's handwriting decorated my refrigerator. "How did you get in?" I asked, keeping my voice neutral. "Used my emergency key," Michael said, appearing in the doorway. "Figured you wouldn't mind, given the circumstances." The emergency key. The one I'd given him 3 years ago when Robert died. When I couldn't get out of bed for weeks and needed someone to check on me. For emergencies. I'd stressed. Real emergencies. We already called around to hotels. Tessa called from the living room. Everything decent is either booked or charging $160 a night. For a whole week. That's over $1,000. It seems silly when you have 2 empty bedrooms. 2 empty bedrooms. She said it like an accusation, like my space was somehow communal property being selfishly hoarded. I opened my freezer, found it rearranged to accommodate a stack of Tessa's branded meal prep containers. Don't you think you should have called first? The question escaped before I could stop it, sharper than intended. The room seemed to contract. Michael's face flushed. That same look from when he was 12 and I'd caught him sneaking money from my purse. But it was Tessa who responded, her voice taking on an edge I'd only heard once before, during an argument about Thanksgiving hosting duties. We're family, Eleanor. I didn't think we needed permission to seek shelter in a crisis. Shelter. Crisis. The words were carefully chosen, weighted with guilt. I felt the familiar tightness in my chest, the one that came whenever someone accused me of being ungenerous. My whole life, I'd been the one who said yes. Yes to overtime no one else wanted. Yes to hosting every holiday. Yes to being the reliable one, the accommodating one, the one who never made waves. Besides, Michael added, his tone softer, more manipulative than his wife's direct approach. Dad would have wanted us to take care of each other. There it was. The Robert card. My late husband. Forever frozen in their minds as the generous patriarch who would have opened every door, given every dollar, surrendered every boundary in the name of family harmony. But Robert had been dead for 3 years. And in those 3 years, I'd learned something about the difference between generosity and being a doormat. I need to put these groceries away, I said, turning my back on both of them. We'll discuss this after dinner. But even as I mechanically sorted frozen vegetables and yogurt cups, I couldn't shake the feeling that the discussion had already been decided, that my home had been colonized while I was comparing prices on chicken breasts. The evidence was everywhere in the shifted furniture, the unfamiliar jacket draped over my hallway chair, the way they'd both avoided meeting my eyes when I'd asked about calling first. 5 to 7 days, Tessa had said. But those suitcases, heavy and numerous, suggested a different timeline altogether. The emotional manipulation started before I'd even finished unpacking the groceries. Tessa had repositioned herself at my dining table, her laptop now open to a spreadsheet that looked suspiciously like a monthly budget. Michael stood behind her, one hand on her shoulder in a united front. "You know, Mom," he began, using that tone I recognized from his teenage years when he wanted concert tickets or a car upgrade. "We've been thinking about family a lot lately, about how you're here all alone in this big place." Big place. My 1,200 square foot condo had somehow transformed into a mansion in his narrative. I continued folding the grocery bags, each crisp fold a small act of maintaining control. I'm hardly alone. Michael. Maya next door checks on me daily. I have my book club, the community center activities. But it's not the same as family, Tessa interrupted, her fingers never stopping their typing. Real family, the kind that's there when you need them. The irony wasn't lost on me. Here they were, needing me, while lecturing about being needed. Hotels really are astronomical right now, Tessa continued, swiveling her laptop toward me. Look at this. The Hampton Inn wants $170 a night. The Marriott is $200. For a week. That's nearly $1,500 we'd have to put on credit cards. I noticed she'd already bookmarked several hotel websites, tabs lined up like evidence in a court case. But something else caught my eye. A tab labelled POO templates, quickly minimized when she saw me looking. "That's a lot of money," I agreed neutrally, wiping down my counter with perhaps more force than necessary. "Money we don't have," Michael added quickly. "Not with the renovation costs. The contractor already required 50% up front. We're stretched thin." Mum. Stretched thin. Yet Tessa's designer handbag, the one I'd seen her post about on Instagram last month, sat casually on my counter. Its price tag enough to cover a week at any hotel in Cedar Ridge. A knock interrupted the performance. Maya Ortiz's distinctive rhythm, 3 quick raps. Pause. 2 more. I'd never been more grateful for her timing. "Come in," I called, knowing she had her own key for emergencies, real ones, unlike whatever this was. Maya entered, carrying her trademark clipboard, her silver hair pulled back in its usual efficient bun. Her eyes took in the scene, the suitcases, Tessa's territorial spread across my dining table, Michael's defensive posture in one comprehensive sweep. "Eleanor, sorry to interrupt. I need to borrow your stepladder for the smoke detector in 207. Her gaze lingered on the luggage. "Having guests. Family emergency," Tessa said before I could respond. "We're just staying a few days while our kitchen is being renovated." Maya's eyebrows rose fractionally. As head of Maple Crest's HOA, she knew every regulation by heart. "Oh, how nice. You'll need to register at the front desk if you're staying more than 3 nights. Building policy. Insurance and safety regulations. You understand." The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. Michael shifted uncomfortably while Tessa's smile became fixed, brittle. "We're family," Tessa repeated, as if the word was a magic key that unlocked all doors, dissolved all boundaries. "Of course," Maya said pleasantly. "The policy applies to all non-resident guests, family included. I'll leave the forms with Eleanor." She turned to me, and I saw the concern in her eyes. "The ladder. Garage storage. I'll get it for you in a moment." After Maya left, promising to return in an hour, the atmosphere grew thick with resentment. "She seems controlling," Tessa muttered, closing her laptop with more force than necessary. "She's doing her job," I said. "This building has rules. I chose to live here specifically because those rules are enforced. Against your own family." Michael's voice carried genuine hurt, or at least a convincing facsimile of it. I wanted to ask him when he'd last visited before needing something. When he'd called just to chat, not to prep me for a request. But those words would start a war I wasn't ready for. Not yet. "I need to discuss something with you privately." "Michael," I said instead. "Whatever you need to say, you can say in front of Tessa." He responded immediately. "We don't keep secrets." But Tessa was already standing, checking her phone with practiced concern. "Actually, babe, I need to take this call. Client emergency." She grabbed her phone and headed to my bedroom, closing the door behind her. Alone with my son. I watched him deflate slightly, the unified front crumbling without his director. "Michael, this isn't really about renovation dust, is it?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "I don't know what you mean." "Your wife has already reorganized my kitchen. There are work schedules posted on my refrigerator. Those suitcases could outfit a family for a month, not a week. You're being paranoid, Mum." Paranoid. The word Every woman over 60 dreads the quick dismissal of legitimate concerns as age-related anxiety. But I'd spent 30 years reading people's real intentions behind their polite office speak. This was just another variation of the same game. Am I? Then you won't mind if I call your contractor. Verify the timeline. His face went pale. You don't have the number. Brennan Construction, isn't it? You mentioned them last month. I pulled out my phone, started typing. They have excellent reviews online. Don't. The word came out sharp, desperate, then softer. Please, Mum, it's complicated. Complicated. Code for we've planned something you won't like. Tessa emerged from my bedroom. Her call conveniently finished. Everything okay out here? She moved to Michael's side, their bodies automatically aligning like magnets. Standing there in my living room, they looked like what they were, a team with an agenda. And I was the opposing player who didn't even know the game had started. We should order dinner, Tessa suggested brightly. Thai food. I know you love that place on Maple Street. Eleanor? Our treat. Our treat. With money they supposedly didn't have for hotels, every word, every gesture, carefully calculated for maximum emotional impact. But they'd made one crucial mistake. They'd underestimated me. Michael's phone sat on my kitchen counter like a grenade with the pin pulled. He'd left it there while helping Tessa carry in another suspicious load from their car boxes that seemed excessive for a week's stay. The screen lit up with a calendar notification, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Move-in Mills, week 2 to 6, Mill, mother-in-law, me. My hands trembled as I picked up the device. Wrong. I knew it was wrong. But that notification had just confirmed every instinct screaming in my head since I'd found them in my home. The phone wasn't locked. Michael had always been careless about security, using his birthday for everything despite my warnings. Another notification popped up. An email preview, durable POA draft, power of attorney. My heart hammered against my ribs as I opened his email app. The draft was addressed to someone named Harrison, apparently a paralegal at a firm I'd never heard of. Per our discussion, we need Eleanor Brooks to sign the attached, medical and financial. My wife suggests approaching it as just-in-case documentation for emergencies. I heard footsteps in the hallway and quickly set the phone back, my mind racing. But they stopped at the guest bedroom, voices murmuring about closet space. I picked up the phone again, hands steadier now, fueled by cold anger rather than shock. The voice memos app showed a recent recording, Script for Mum, created 3 days ago, 2 minutes and 30 seconds long. I grabbed my earbuds from my purse, plugged them in, and pressed play. Tessa's voice filled my ears. Clinical and calculating. Okay, so we start with the emotional approach. I cry about the renovation. Real tears? I can do that. Michael mentions the cost, plants the guilt about empty rooms. If she resists, we pivot to safety concerns. Say I'm worried about leaving her alone. Maybe mention that fall Mrs. Patterson had last month. Michael's voice interrupted. Should we mention Dad? Absolutely. Dead husband guilt is gold. But save it for if she really pushes back. The key is to make her think it's temporary while we establish residency. After 30 days, we have tenant rights in Colorado. She can't just kick us out then. What about the POA stuff? Week 3, after she's used to us being there. Frame it as responsible planning. Every elderly person needs one. Right. We're doing her a favor. Elderly. I was 62, still playing tennis twice a week, sharp enough to catch their scheme. But in their narrative, I was already a feeble old woman who needed managing. The recording continued. They'd mapped out everything how to access my accounts. She keeps passwords in that blue notebook. How to intercept my mail, volunteer to get it daily. Even how to gradually take over my bills. Offer to help with online payments. Say it's easier? I screenshot everything: the calendar, the email draft, the voice memo file. Then I opened their text messages. A thread with someone named Brittany made my blood boil. Set. Operation Mill takeover starts Thursday. Brittany, LOL savage. How long you think before you get the house? Tessa, 6 months tops. Once we're on everything as POA, we can make decisions for her well-being. Maybe she needs assisted living. Brittany, girl, you're cold. Tessa, it's a 900K property. I'm practical. 900,000. They'd already had my home appraised. I photographed everything with my own phone, my hands steady now with purpose. A folder called Financial Planning contained spreadsheets calculating my net worth, my social security payments, my retirement accounts. They'd done their homework. Another document outlined Phase 4 establish incompetence. Mom. Michael's voice from the hallway made me jump. I set his phone down exactly as it had been, grabbed a dishcloth, and started wiping the counter. He appeared in the doorway, face flushed from carrying boxes. We're mostly settled in the guest room. Tessa's setting up her office in the second bedroom. Her office. I kept my voice level, channeling 30 years of professional composure. Just temporarily. She has video calls with clients, needs a professional background. Already claiming territory, establishing themselves in every corner of my space. I noticed he picked up his phone immediately, checking it with the nervous energy of someone confirming evidence hadn't been disturbed. Your phone was buzzing, I said casually. I think you have calendar reminders. His face went through several expressions: alarm, calculation, forced calm. Oh, probably just work stuff. Thanks. Tessa appeared, having changed into yoga clothes, making herself at home. Eleanor, I was thinking we could rearrange the living room a bit. The feng shui is all off. That couch would work better against the far wall. The audacity took my breath away. But I smiled. The same smile I'd perfected in decades of office politics. Let's see how things go for the next few days first. Days. Tessa's voice sharpened. Michael told you about the full renovation timeline. Right. The contractor said 6 weeks minimum. 6 weeks. I feigned surprise. That's quite different from 5 to 7 days. They exchanged glances, recalibrating their approach. That's worst case, Michael said quickly. If they find structural issues, or, which they already have, Tessa interrupted, her lie smooth as silk. Asbestos in the walls, the whole timeline's blown. Asbestos. In a condo built in 2003, they thought I was stupid. How concerning, I said. You should definitely get that in writing from the contractor. For insurance purposes, I'll need a copy for the HOA too, since you'll be registering as long-term guests. Another silent exchange between them. I could see them trying to figure out how much I knew, how much was suspicion versus certainty. Sure, Mum. I'll get that tomorrow. Tomorrow. Always tomorrow with Michael. Even as a child. Tomorrow he'd clean his room. Tomorrow he'd do his homework. Tomorrow he'd pay me back. But I'd learned something about tomorrows. They were usually lies told to survive today. Looking at them standing in my kitchen, plotting the theft of my life while eating my food. I felt something shift inside me. The accommodating mother, the understanding widow, the lonely old woman they'd scripted. She was done playing her role. They wanted to play games with a feeble old woman. Fine. But they should have remembered that this particular old woman had survived corporate mergers, hostile takeovers, and 30 years of office warfare. And I'd never lost a fight that mattered after they'd retreated to their claimed territories for the night. I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop, the screenshots glowing on my phone beside me. The clock on my microwave read 11:43 p.m. Sleep was impossible with invaders in my home, so I might as well use the time productively. First, I forwarded all the evidence to my personal cloud storage, then to Maya's email with a brief explanation. Her response came within minutes. My God, Eleanor. Come over first thing tomorrow. Bring everything. Next, I searched for legal aid. Harper and Fields. Legal aid had excellent reviews for elder law and tenant disputes. They offered free consultations for seniors. I booked the earliest available slot, 8:30 a.m. tomorrow, video call. Perfect timing since Michael and Tessa rarely emerged before 9. My bank account was next. Wells Fargo's website loaded slowly, each second stretching like an hour. When I finally logged in, my suspicions were confirmed. 3 unauthorized Zelle transfers to Michael's account over the past week, each just under $500 to avoid triggering alerts. The descriptions were vague: lunch, groceries, gas. But I hadn't authorized any of them. The secondary card I'd given Michael years ago for emergencies only showed charges at Best Buy, Target, and surprisingly, a furniture store. They'd been furnishing their extended stay on my dime. I changed every password, using combinations they'd never guess. No more birthdays or anniversaries. Then I called the 24-hour banking line, my voice steady despite my rage. I need to freeze a secondary card and dispute several unauthorized transactions, I told the representative. I can help with that? Mrs. Brooks. For security. Can you verify? 20 minutes later, Michael's card was dead. The transactions flagged for investigation, and new cards ordered to be sent to Maya's address, a detail the bank representative didn't question when I explained I was having mail theft issues. The HOA website was my next stop. I downloaded every regulation about guest stays, printed them with relevant sections highlighted. Colorado tenant law came next. Tessa had been right about one thing after 30 days. I'd need formal eviction proceedings. But they'd only been here one day, 29 to go, and I wouldn't give them another 29 hours if I could help it. I created a new document, notice to vacate, clear, professional, dated. Then another, record of unauthorized entry and occupancy, every detail from finding them in my home, every lie about the renovation timeline, every piece of evidence suggesting financial fraud. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number, but the content made it clear who it was. Eleanor, it's Harrison from Breslin and Associates. Michael Brooks contacted us about POA documentation for you. This is irregular, but I wanted to verify you're aware of this request. Please call our office tomorrow if you have concerns. So even their paralegal was uncomfortable with their approach. I screenshot that too, adding it to my growing arsenal. At 1:15 a.m., I heard movement in the hallway, soft footsteps approaching the kitchen. I minimized my windows, pulled up a recipe website instead. Can't sleep. Tessa stood in the doorway, silk pajamas that probably cost more than my monthly HOA fees. Just looking at recipes for tomorrow's dinner? I said pleasantly. Since you'll be guests, I should be a good host. She moved closer, eyes trying to catch my screen. That's sweet, but unnecessary. We can take care of ourselves. I'm sure you can. I closed the laptop. Just like you took care of getting into my home without permission. Her mask slipped for just a second, a flash of calculation. Assessment. Michael has a key. We're family. Family calls first. Family asks. Family doesn't secretly record conversations about manipulating elderly relatives. The word elderly hung between us like a challenge. She recovered quickly. Though, I don't know what you think you heard. I think I heard exactly what you recorded 3 days ago. Interesting script, by the way. Though the tears could use work. Too theatrical. Now the mask came off entirely. She sat across from me, predator recognizing predator. You went through Michael's phone. He left it open. Calendar notifications are hard to miss when they say, move in, Mills week 2 to 6. She leaned back, studying me with new interest. You're sharper than Michael said. Michael sees what he wants to see. Always has. He loves you, you know. This wasn't personal. Planning to steal my home and declare me incompetent isn't personal. She had the audacity to shrug. It's practical. You're sitting on nearly $1 million in property, living alone, getting older. We could take care of you. Take care of my money? You mean that too? No shame, no pretense now. Look, Eleanor, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Michael is your only family. Courts tend to side with family caregivers. A few concerned reports about confusion. Maybe a fall or two. Are you threatening me? I'm being realistic. You're 62, widowed, isolated. We're a young couple trying to help an aging parent who's showing signs of paranoia and hostility. The narrative they'd planned to spin was crystal clear now, but she'd made a tactical error, showing her hand too early, drunk on the confidence of their plan. Interesting perspective, I said, standing. Let me offer you another one. You're grifters who broke into my home, attempted financial fraud, and conspired to commit elder abuse. I have evidence of everything backed up in multiple locations and a meeting with a lawyer in 7 hours. Her confidence flickered. Michael won't support you over me. We're trying to start a family. He needs this. Then Michael should have married someone who wasn't planning to rob his mother. She stood too, moving to the doorway. You have no idea what you're starting, Eleanor. No, dear. You have no idea who you're trying to con. I survived 40 years in corporate America. I've faced down executives who could buy and sell your little schemes before breakfast. You think you're the first person to underestimate me because I'm a woman over 60. For the first time since I'd met her 5 years ago, Tessa looked genuinely uncertain. This conversation doesn't change anything, she said finally. We're staying. For now, I agreed. But you might want to check your husband's Zelle access in the morning. And that furniture you bought yesterday, I'd keep the receipts. She left without another word, her silk pajamas swishing down the hallway like a retreating flag. I sat back down, opened my laptop, and continued building my case. Dawn was coming, and with it, the first day of what they'd started. But I would be the one to finish it. The video call with Harper and Field's legal aid started at exactly 8:30 a.m. I'd positioned myself in my bedroom with the door locked, having heard Michael and Tessa stirring earlier than usual. Attorney Patricia Harper, a woman about my age with sharp eyes behind designer glasses, listened to my story without interrupting, occasionally nodding as I showed her the screenshots. Mrs. Brooks. What they're attempting is unfortunately common, but highly illegal. The conspiracy to commit financial elder abuse alone could result in criminal charges. Do you feel physically safe? For now. But Tessa made veiled threats last night about staging falls. Her expression hardened. I'm going to email you documentation to print and sign immediately. It explicitly states you do not consent to any power of attorney, that you're of sound mind, and that any documents presented otherwise are fraudulent. Get it notarized today. Maya Ortiz can witness it if she's a notary. She is. Actually. Perfect. Also, install cameras in common areas immediately. Colorado is a one-party consent state for recording in your own home. Document everything. If they escalate, call 911 immediately. After the call, I found Michael in my kitchen making coffee, acting like nothing had happened. The normalcy of it, him using my favorite mug, humming off-key, made my skin crawl. Morning. Mum? Tessa's on a client call. Want some coffee? Already had mine. I printed the legal documents at my desk, making sure he could see me but not read the content. I need you both out here in an hour. House meeting. His hand paused mid-pour. House meeting. 10 a.m. sharp, both of you. I spent the next hour with Maya in her unit, getting documents notarized and showing her the evidence. Her husband, retired Denver PD, listened in with growing disgust. 20 years on the force. I've seen this exact scam dozens of times, he said. Always family. Always gradual. You're handling it right. Eleanor. Back in my unit at exactly 10, I found them positioned on my sofa like defendants awaiting verdict. I'd arranged the dining room strategically, my laptop open to the HOA regulations, printed documents in neat piles, my phone prominently recording. I want to be clear about expectations while you're here, I began, remaining standing. First, here's the HOA guest registration form. It needs to be filed today. Tessa took it reluctantly, scanning the terms. This says maximum stay is 14 days without board approval. Correct? So if your renovation truly takes 6 weeks, you'll need to present your contractor's documentation to the board. We'll get it, Michael said quickly. Excellent. Please have it by 5 p.m. today, or you'll need to check out tomorrow morning. I handed them another document. This is a rental agreement. Since you're staying beyond a casual visit, we need terms in writing. $1,200 a week. Utilities included. $1,200 a week. Tessa's voice pitched high. That's more than a hotel. Actually, it's market rate for a furnished 2-bedroom in Cedar Ridge. I checked. Of course, if you prefer a hotel. They exchanged those loaded glances I was beginning to recognize as their strategic planning looks. We can't afford that, Michael said. You know we can't. Then you can't afford to stay here. I'm not running a charity. Michael, I have my own expenses. You never charged us before when we visited, Tessa interjected. You never moved in with suitcases and office equipment before. Visiting and living are different things, as I'm sure you're aware, given your research into tenant law. The shot landed. Tessa's face flushed, while Michael looked confused. She obviously hadn't shared all their strategy with him. Furthermore, I continued, I've frozen the credit card you've been using. Michael, The unauthorized Zelle transfers have been reported to the bank as fraud. Fraud. He stood up, genuine shock on his face. Mom, I was going to pay you back. When, like you, paid back the $3,000 you borrowed for your car down payment, or the $5,000 for your wedding that was supposed to be a 2-month loan. The running tally of his debts, never before mentioned, hung in the air like an accusation. Nearly $20,000 over the years, always with promises of repayment that never materialized. That's different. No, it's not. And this ends now. I pulled out the recorder I'd placed under my chair the night before, setting it on the table. I think we should discuss what's really happening here. Before they could respond, I pressed play on my phone. Tessa's voice filled the room. The key is to make her think it's temporary while we establish residency. After 30 days. We have tenant rights in Colorado. She can't just kick us out then. I let it play through the entire planning session, watching Michael's face cycle through shock, anger, and finally, defeat. When it ended, silence stretched between us like a chasm. You recorded us. Tessa's voice was deadly quiet. You recorded yourselves. I just found it. Along with your POA drafts, your financial planning spreadsheets with my assets, and your text messages about Operation Mill takeover. You went through my phone. Michael's betrayal seemed genuine, which almost made me laugh. You broke into my home. We all crossed lines. Son? The difference is, mine was self-defense. Maya chose that moment to arrive, using her key as planned. Eleanor, sorry to interrupt. The HOA board needs those guest registration forms by noon now. New policy. She looked at Michael and Tessa with professional coolness. If you're staying, of course. We need to talk privately, Michael said to me, desperate now. No more private talks. Anything you need to say can be said in front of witnesses. That's for everyone's protection. Tessa stood, her composure cracking. This is insane. We came here for help. No. You came here with a 6-week plan to establish residency, gain power of attorney, and eventually take my home. I have all the evidence, backed up in multiple locations, with multiple witnesses now aware of the situation. We could contest. Try it. Maya's husband appeared in the doorway, his retired detective shield visible on his belt, a psychological prop, but effective. Elder abuse is a felony in Colorado. Financial exploitation of a vulnerable adult, though Eleanor's hardly vulnerable, carries serious jail time. The word jail finally penetrated their bubble of entitlement. Mom! Michael's voice broke slightly. Please, we're desperate. The renovation is real. We're in debt. Then get jobs, better jobs. Sell Tessa's designer bags. Downsize your lifestyle. But you don't get to make your poor planning my emergency. I pulled out the final document. This is a notice to vacate. You have 24 hours. If you're not gone by 10, tomorrow, I file for emergency eviction and criminal charges. The room erupted in protests, tears, threats about family loyalty and dying alone. But I'd heard it all before in that recorded script. This was just the live performance of their rehearsal, and I was done being their audience. The dinner invitation was calculated warfare disguised as olive branch. I'd given them 6 hours to stew in their predicament, watching from my bedroom window as they carried boxes back to their car with the defeated posture of retreating soldiers. But at 4:30 p., I knocked on the guest room door with my best grandmother smile. I've made reservations at Tuscany Grove for 6 o'clock. We should talk things through over a civilized meal. Tessa looked suspicious. Mascara smudged from what appeared to be genuine tears this time. Michael just looked exhausted. That particular weariness of a man caught between two opposing forces. Why? Tessa asked bluntly. Because despite everything, Michael is still my son, and you're still his wife. If we're going to sever ties, let's at least do it properly. The restaurant was purposely chosen public enough to prevent scenes, private enough for honest conversation. I'd requested a corner booth and arrived early, placing my phone prominently on the table, the recording app visibly running, legal in Colorado, and they needed to know this conversation was on record. They arrived exactly on time. Tessa having changed into a conservative dress, Michael in the blazer I'd bought him 2 Christmases ago, playing the respectable couple now. Before we start, I said as they sat down, this conversation is being recorded for everyone's protection. If you object, we can end this now. Michael started to protest, but Tessa put her hand on his arm. It's fine. We have nothing to hide. The waiter brought water and menus. I'd already ordered a bottle of wine, the good Chianti they'd never spring for themselves. Let them think I was softening. I want to understand, I began after the wine was poured. When exactly you decided I was just a resource to be exploited? Mum, let me finish. Michael, I've supported you through college, your wedding, your career changes, your financial emergencies. Never asked for repayment, never set conditions. And this is how you repay that generosity, by plotting to steal my home. Tessa took a large sip of wine before answering. You want honesty? Fine. We're drowning. Eleanor? Student loans, credit cards, the mortgage on a condo that's falling apart. Michael's company is downsizing. He didn't tell you that, did he? He could be laid off next month. I looked at my son, who couldn't meet my eyes. Is that true? They're restructuring, he admitted. I'm probably safe, but probably isn't definitely, Tessa continued. We saw your place. 2 bedrooms you don't need, worth nearly $1 million. And yes, we thought if we could just live there for a while, get our feet under us, maybe eventually you'd need more care and we'd be there to provide it, while having power of attorney over my finances. Someone needs to protect your interests as you age. I'm 62, not 92. I manage my own finances, my own healthcare, my own life quite successfully. The appetizers arrived bruschetta I didn't remember ordering. Tessa must have added it while I was setting up the recording, still spending my money even now. The real issue, Tessa said, abandoning her defensive tone for something harder. Is that you're selfish, Eleanor? Sitting on all that wealth while your only child struggles? Maya appeared at our table as if summoned. We'd actually planned this interruption for 6:45 p. Exactly. She carried a folder, her expression professionally neutral. Eleanor, so sorry to interrupt your dinner. The board met in emergency session. Given the circumstances, she placed the folder on the table. These need your signature. I opened it, knowing what was inside but playing the scene. HOU documentation about unauthorized occupancy, a cease and desist for harassment, and most importantly, a trespass notice with Michael and Tessa's names. You called an emergency board meeting about us. Michael's voice cracked with disbelief. I called it, Maya said coolly. After reviewing the evidence Eleanor provided, the board voted unanimously. You have until 10 a. tomorrow to vacate, or we involve law enforcement. She left as quickly as she'd come, leaving the papers between us like a declaration of war. You turned the whole building against us, Tessa said, her voice low and dangerous. No, you did that yourselves when you decided to run a con game. I pulled out my phone, swiped to the voice memos. Should I play your script again? The part about making me seem confused, staging falls. That was just... We were frustrated, brainstorming. You were plotting elder abuse. I let that sink in. But here's what really hurts. Michael, you knew about all of it. Every step, every lie, every manipulation. I didn't know about the recording, he said weakly. But you knew about the rest. The 6-week timeline, the POA scheme, the plan to take over my finances. His silence was admission enough. Mom, he finally said, we're desperate. Do you understand that, actually desperate, we could lose everything? So your solution was to take everything from me. Not everything, just help. Real help. I've been helping you for 20 years. When does it end? When family stops meaning anything to you, apparently, Tessa interjected, her mask fully off now. Fine, we'll leave. But when you're actually old, actually need help, don't call us. I won't need to. I have friends, neighbors, a community that respects boundaries and honest relationships. What I don't have is family I can trust. The main courses arrived expensive steaks they ordered despite the circumstances. We ate in tense silence, the recording app still running, capturing every bitter bite. Finally, Tessa spoke again, quieter now. You know what your problem is, Eleanor. You think love should be unconditional, but your support comes with all these invisible strings: gratitude, good behavior, staying in our place. No, I said firmly. My support came with no strings at all. That was the problem. I never asked for gratitude, never required accountability, never set boundaries. I taught Michael that my resources were his birthright, and you both decided to cash in that inheritance early. We made a mistake. You made a plan, a detailed, documented plan to defraud me. I signaled for the check. This is the last meal I'm buying you, the last anything I'm providing. When the check came, I paid it without looking at the total one final gesture of the generosity they'd tried to exploit. Tenner, tomorrow, I reminded them, standing to leave. If you're not gone, the sheriff will help you leave. This isn't over, Tessa said, still seated, gripping her wine glass. I looked back at them, my son shrinking into himself, his wife radiating fury, and felt nothing but relief. Yes, it is. The only question now is whether you leave with your dignity or in handcuffs. I walked out into the cool Colorado evening, the recording still running in my pocket, capturing their bitter whispers behind me. Tomorrow they'd be gone, but tonight I needed witnesses to every word, every threat, every final manipulation. The script they'd written had called for tears at this point, but I wasn't following their script anymore. By 9:30 p.m., I'd transformed my dining room into a command center. Legal documents spread across the table, laptop open to 3 different screens, email, bank accounts, and the security feed from the building's lobby that Maya had given me access to. My phone was charging, ready for whatever last-minute assault they might attempt. The knock came at 9:47 p.m., softer than expected. when I opened the door with the chain still on. Michael stood alone in the hallway, looking like the boy who used to come to me after nightmare. "Can we talk? Just you and me? Where's Tessa?" "Packing. She's upset." I let him in, but kept the recorder visible on the coffee table, its red light a silent witness. He sat in Robert's old chair, a liberty he'd never taken before, and I saw his father's features in his exhausted face. "I need you to understand something," he began. "This wasn't my idea." "But you went along with it?" "She's my wife. She painted this picture of how it would help everyone. You wouldn't be alone. We'd save money. Eventually, when you actually needed help." "Stop." I held up my hand. "You're 39 years old, Michael. Stop letting other people write your story." He rubbed his face, and I noticed his wedding ring was missing. "She took it off yours?" He glanced at his hand. "We had a fight after dinner. She said if I couldn't support her in this, maybe we needed to reconsider things." "Manipulation till the end?" "It's not manipulation when it's true. She's right about one thing. I've been a terrible son. Taking money. Disappearing unless I need something. Letting her convince me that you were just this resource." The word hung between us, ugly and honest. "When did I become that to you?" I asked, genuinely curious. "When Dad died, before. When Tessa started pointing out how much you had versus how much we were struggling. She made spreadsheets. Mum, literal spreadsheets of your assets. What we could save if we lived here. How much we'd inherit." He laughed bitterly. "I should have run then." "But you didn't." "No. Because the math made sense. Why should you have all this space when we're cramped? Why should you have financial security when we're drowning? She made me feel like your success was our deprivation." A door slammed down the hall, Tessa making her presence known. "She's listening, isn't she?" I said. "Probably." He leaned forward, voice dropping. "Mum, I need to tell you something. The POA thing that was just phase 1. She has a cousin who's a nurse, works in senior care. The plan was to have her visit regularly, document concerning behaviors, build a case for cognitive decline." My blood chilled. "Michael, I know. I know how it sounds. But when you're desperate, when someone you love keeps showing you spreadsheets and timelines and says it's the only way," he trailed off. "I'm not making excuses. Just explaining how I got here." Another knock, sharp and demanding. Tessa's voice through the door. "Michael, we need to go. Now." "In a minute," he called back. "Now. Michael. Or I'm calling my brother." The brother was news to me, another threat, another pressure point. Michael stood, looking older than his 39 years. "I'm going to send you something," he said quietly, pulling out his phone. The whole plan, every document, every text thread, every recording she made. Not for forgiveness, just so you can protect yourself. My phone buzzed repeatedly as files transferred. Screenshots of conversations with the cousin nurse, documents about guardianship proceedings, research on how to challenge mental competency. "Why?" I asked. "Because you're my mother, and somewhere under all this garbage, I remember that meaning something." Tessa burst in using Michael's key, her face contorted with rage. "What are you doing?" "The right thing. Finally." She looked at my phone, saw the transfer completing. "You stupid. Weak." She caught herself, remembering the recorder. but her eyes said everything her mouth couldn't. "We're getting divorced," Michael said, the words surprising all three of us. "I already texted my lawyer." "You don't have a lawyer." Tessa spat. "I do now. Jeremiah Collins. Friend from college. He's been waiting for my call. Apparently. Said he saw this coming at our wedding." The silence stretched until I could hear the building's elevator humming in the distance. "You just destroyed our life," Tessa said, her voice deadly quiet. "For what a mother who's cutting you off anyway." "For being able to look at myself in the mirror," Michael replied. She turned to me, her composure finally completely shattered. "You win, Eleanor. Congratulations. You get to die alone in your perfect little condo with your perfect little boundaries. I'd rather die alone with dignity than live surrounded by parasites." She actually stepped toward me then, fists clenched, but Michael caught her arm. "Don't. Just don't. We've done enough." He guided her toward the door, but she wrenched free for one last salvo. "That recording from the restaurant, I have it too. Every word about how you're cutting off your only child. Wait until the family hears it. Wait until everyone knows what kind of mother you really are." "What family?" I asked calmly. "Your Facebook friends. Michael's cousins who haven't called in 5 years. Send it to everyone. Send them the whole story while you're at it. The plan. The POA scheme. The fake renovation. Let them judge who's the villain here." She left without another word, her heels striking the hallway floor like a countdown to detonation. Michael lingered at the threshold. "The divorce will be ugly," he said. "She'll try to take everything." "You don't have anything to take." "I have my dignity back. That's something." He paused. "I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect anything. But I wanted you to know I'm getting help. Therapy. Figure out how I became someone who could do this. That's a start. Can I ask one favor? Not money. Nothing like that. Just, could you tell me when Dad got sick, how you handled it? His diagnosis, the treatment, the end. We never really talked about it. And I wasn't there enough." The question caught me off guard, tears suddenly threatening. "Why now?" "Because I'm realizing I don't know anything about you except what you could do for me. And that's not a son. That's just another kind of parasite." I wrote down the name of the grief support group I still attended monthly. "They meet Wednesdays at 7. I'll tell them you might come." He took the paper like it was precious. "Thank you." "Michael," I called as he reached the elevator. "The furniture you bought with my card, donate it. Women's shelter. Maybe something useful." He nodded, managed a sad smile. "That's very you, Mum, finding good in the garbage." The elevator doors closed on my son's face, and I stood in my doorway listening to the mechanical sounds of his descent. Tomorrow at 10 a. The locks would be changed. The notices would be filed. The boundaries would be fortified. But tonight, in the space between betrayal and whatever came next, I'd witnessed something unexpected, a parasite remembering it had once been a son. It wasn't redemption. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was truth. Finally. And that was worth recording. The morning arrived crisp and bright, the kind of Colorado day that usually lifted my spirits. At 9:45, I stood at my window watching Michael's Honda Civic in the visitors' parking lot, packed so full the rear window was blocked. Tessa sat in the passenger seat, her face hidden behind oversized sunglasses, furiously typing on her phone. Maya arrived at 9:50, along with Tom from building security and, to my surprise, attorney Patricia Harper in person. "Wanted to make sure everything went smoothly," Patricia said, her briefcase suggesting she expected trouble. At 9:58, my phone exploded with notifications. Tessa had made good on her threat Facebook posts, family group texts, even emails to cousins I hadn't spoken to in years. The subject line was dramatic: the truth about Eleanor Brooks. I opened one message from Robert's sister in Florida. "Eleanor, is this true? Did you really evict Michael?" Before I could respond, Michael appeared at my door, alone. "The keys," he said simply, placing them on my entrance table. "Both sets. And this." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $5,000. "It's not much, but it's everything I could pull from our emergency fund. First payment on what I owe you. Michael, please, let me do this one thing right." Behind him, the elevator dinged. Tessa emerged, pulling the last suitcase, her designer heels clicking against the floor like a war drum. She stopped at my doorway, and for a moment, I thought she might apologize, might show some fragment of humanity. Instead, she held up her phone, showing me her latest post, a photo of Michael's packed car with the caption, "Abusive mother throws son out for asking for help. Elder narcissism at its finest." 63 comments already, she said with vicious satisfaction. "Your reputation is trash. Eleanor." I pulled out my own phone, opened the album Michael had sent me the night before, every screenshot, every recording transcript, every piece of evidence of their scheme. My finger hovered over the share button. "Post it," Michael said quietly. "Post all of it. She needs to face consequences." Tessa's smugness evaporated. "You wouldn't dare." "Actually," Maya interjected, holding up her own phone, "the HOA board already has. Complete documentation of the attempted fraud has been shared with the building's resident portal. All 200 units. Your names and photos are now on the permanent ban list," Attorney Harper added. "We've also notified the Colorado Elder Justice Coalition. They maintain a database of individuals who've attempted elder fraud. Background checks will be interesting for you going forward." Tessa's phone buzzed continuously as comments poured in, but now they were responding to the HOA's post, to Michael's cousins sharing my evidence, to the narrative flipping in real time. "You planned everything," Tessa said, her voice hollow. "This whole week. You were playing us." "No," I corrected. "I was protecting myself. There's a difference." She looked at Michael with pure hatred. "This is your fault, your weakness, your pathetic need for Mommy's approval. Stop." His voice carried an authority I'd never heard before. "It's over. Tessa, we're over. The marriage, the schemes, all of it. Done." She actually laughed then, brittle and sharp. "You think you can divorce me with what money? What lawyer you'll cave within a week? Come crawling back. Jeremiah is handling it pro bono." Michael interrupted. "Fraud during marriage is grounds for at-fault divorce in Colorado. You'll get nothing except what you brought in." The elevator arrived with perfect timing. Tom from security stepped forward. "Ma'am, you need to leave the premises now." Tessa grabbed the last suitcase, her exit ruined by its broken wheel squeaking down the hallway. At the elevator, she turned back one final time. "You'll regret this, Eleanor, when you're 70. 80. Dying alone. I'd rather die alone than live with vultures. The elevator doors closed on her snarl. Michael stood frozen in the hallway, watching the numbers descend. When they reached the lobby, he turned to me. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not just for this week. For years of being the son who only called when he needed something. For letting Dad down. For letting you down." "Sorry doesn't erase it, Michael." "No, but therapy might help prevent it happening again." He pulled out a card from his wallet. Dr. Jennifer Martinez, Family Systems Therapy. "First appointment's Monday?" Patricia Harper stepped forward. "Mrs. Brooks, we should document this interaction." "It's okay," I said. "We're done here." Michael nodded, understanding. "The grief group, would it be okay if I really did come? Not to see you, just to understand." "Wednesdays at 7, Methodist Church on Birch Street." He walked to the elevator, each step measured and final. Before the doors closed, he spoke one last time. "Mom, that recording from your kitchen, where Tessa explains the whole plan, I sent it to her parents. They should know who their daughter really is." The doors shut, and silence settled over the hallway like dust after demolition. Maya squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" "I will be." Patricia Harper handed me her card. "If they contact you again, any harassment at all, call immediately. The restraining order paperwork is ready to file." They left me standing in my doorway, looking at the keys Michael had returned. The emergency key I'd given in love, returned in shame. I went inside, locked the door with the new deadbolt I'd had installed that morning, and stood in my reclaimed space. The guest rooms bore no trace of their invasion. I'd already stripped the beds, opened windows to air out Tessa's perfume, reclaimed my territory. My phone continued buzzing with messages from family, friends, distant acquaintances who'd seen the drama unfold online. I turned it off. The judgment of strangers meant nothing. The loss of my son, that was the real price of this victory. But as I stood in my kitchen, making tea in my favorite mug, watching the mountains through my window, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years, the absolute freedom of enforced boundaries, the liberation of saying no more. The script they'd written had called for me to be the victim, the mark, the elderly woman too weak to protect herself. Instead, I'd flipped their screenplay, turned their documentary of deceit into evidence of their greed. My phone, when I turned it back on, showed one last message from an unknown number. The area code was from Nevada Tessa's parents. "Mrs. Brooks, we just listened to the recording. We are horrified and deeply sorry. Tessa won't be welcome here either. You did the right thing." The right thing. Such a simple phrase for such a complex wound. I made my tea, settled into my chair, in my home, with my life intact, and opened my laptop. The blank document stared back, waiting. "My son's wife stood there crying," I typed. But what I found in his phone changed everything. Someone should tell this story, the real story, not Tessa's Facebook fiction or Michael's therapy revelations, but the truth about what happens when love becomes leverage, when family becomes fraud, when a 62-year-old woman discovers she's stronger than the parasites who tried to drain her. The morning sun climbed higher, warming my living room, illuminating the space where their suitcases had stood like an invasion. Now there was just clean floor, polished wood, and the satisfying click of my fingers on the keyboard, documenting every detail while it was fresh. because this story needed telling. Other women needed to know you can love your children and still lock your doors against their greed. You can be a good mother without being a victim. You can choose yourself, even if it means standing alone in your victory. The phone rang the grief support group coordinator, confirming Wednesday's topic, boundaries after loss. Perfect timing. I had so much to share. The locks were changed. The evidence was filed. The parasites were gone. And I, Eleanor Brooks, was finally, completely, irrevocably free. Thank you so much for listening to my story. I'd love to know where you're tuning in from. Drop a comment below and let's connect. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you found this story compelling. And please share your thoughts on what you would have done in Eleanor's situation. Your perspectives and experiences make this community richer.